Just end it quickly, she said. The rancher pulled back the blanket and recoiled in horror. The wind whistled softly through the alien grasses, carrying with it a scent of dust and iron. Eli Turner, the rancher, squinted at the horizon, adjusting the brim of his hat. Life here was hard, but it was honest. Every day was a test of patience, strength, and careful planning. And yet he found comfort in the routine. His cattle, adapted for the harsh alien plains, moved slowly along the ridge, their course, silvery fur glinting in the moonlight. Eli checked each one carefully, tapping their sides, inspecting their hooves. The animals were hardy, just like the settlers who had carved a life out of this desolate world. Eli felt a quiet pride. Here, far from the crowded colonies of Core World, humanity's resilience was on display, even in something as simple as keeping livestock alive on a barren planet. The sun had long since disappeared behind the mountains, leaving only the pale glow of the moons. Eli was about to head back to the small cabin that served as both his home and workshop when he noticed something unusual. A figure moved near the edge of the property, stumbling over the uneven ground. Eli squinted, his hand instinctively going to the side of his coat where a plasma flashlight hung. He had seen many things in his life, but travelers in this remote part of the world were rare. "Hello," he called, his voice firm but cautious. "You lost." The figure froze. Then slowly it began to move toward him. As it drew closer, Eli's heart skipped a beat. It was a woman, thin, almost fragile, her clothes torn and dusty. Her hair, dark and tangled, fell over her face, but what struck him most was her eyes. Wide, fearful, and shimmering under the moonlight, they seemed to carry the weight of something beyond mere human experience. Eli moved closer, holding his hands in a gesture of calm. "Easy now," he said gently. "You're safe here, just take it slow." The woman shook her head slightly, her lips trembling. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Just end it quickly." Eli froze. The words were strange, unsettling, almost incomprehensible. Why would someone say that? Was she asking for help or warning him of something? He hesitated, then stepped closer, instinctively reaching out. She sagged suddenly, almost collapsing to the ground. Without thinking, Eli lifted her carefully into his arms, feeling the unusual lightness of her body. Back at the cabin, he laid her on the old couch, pulling a clean blanket from the cupboard. Her skin was pale, almost translucent in the moonlight streaming through the windows. She shivered violently, and Eli pulled the blanket over her shoulders. "Don't worry," he said softly. "You're safe now. I'll figure out what's wrong." She murmured something he couldn't quite understand, then fell silent. Eli took a step back, studying her carefully. There was something off about her, not human, yet human enough to make him feel protective. He had encountered strange creatures in his travels, but this was different. He checked her pulse. Steady, though weak. Her breathing was shallow. He grabbed a cloth and a basin of warm water, gently cleaning the dirt and grime from her face. As he worked, he noticed faint lines on her skin, almost like tattoos but glowing faintly. He frowned, realizing these were not natural markings. Something about her biology was alien. Eli sat back on the edge of the couch, rubbing his temples. He had always believed in helping those in need, but this was unlike anything he had ever faced. His mind raced. Should he call for help? There were no nearby settlements. Communication was weak out here, and by the time anyone arrived, it might be too late. He took a deep breath. He had to act. Whatever this was, he couldn't leave her outside. Not with predators roaming the plains, not with the cold of the twin moons creeping into the cabin. He glanced at her again. She stirred slightly, opening one eye. It was a deep, strange color, shifting between green and gold. Eli felt a shiver run down his spine. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Instead, she pointed weakly toward the window. Eli followed her gaze. Nothing. Just the wind sweeping across the plains, moving the tall grasses like waves in a stormy sea. "Are you in trouble?" he asked carefully. Her lips parted and she whispered again, "They will come." Eli's heart skipped another beat. He frowned. "Who will come?" he asked. But she didn't answer. She turned her head slightly, avoiding his gaze. It was clear she was exhausted, terrified, and in pain. He decided to let her rest. He dimmed the lights, leaving only the soft glow of the twin moons streaming in. He sat by the fireplace, listening to the crackle of the fire, his mind racing. Whatever had happened to her, it was serious. Whatever they were dangerous. And he had no idea how to help her. Hours passed. The woman finally drifted into a troubled sleep, her body shaking occasionally. Eli watched her silently, feeling a mix of fear, curiosity, and determination. He had spent his life taming the harsh landscape of Dryfall Ranch, but now he faced a challenge unlike any other. This wasn't about cattle or weather. It was about life, survival, and something he didn't yet understand. He stood and moved to the window, looking out across the plains. The wind carried a low, eerie sound, almost like a distant growl. Eli's hand tightened on the window frame. The plains were vast but not empty. Something was out there, something big, something patient. He shook his head, trying to calm himself. He needed to focus. First, he had to keep her safe. Second, he had to understand what she was. He went to the small table in the corner, pulling out his old scanner. It was crude, not suited for advanced alien biology, but it might give him a clue. He knelt beside her, aiming the scanner carefully. The screen flickered, then beeped. Patterns emerged, showing traces of biological energy unlike anything Eli had encountered. It was faint, unstable, but unmistakable. Her body was partially human and partially something else, something extraordinary. Eli's mind raced. He had read stories, heard rumors about hybrid beings, experiments, and alien encounters, but he had always been practical. He had never believed such things could exist, not until now. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. Fear threatened to take hold, but he pushed it aside. He had survived harsh planets, deadly storms, and wild creatures. He could survive this, and he would protect her, no matter what. The night stretched on. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the fire burned low. Eli kept his eyes on the sleeping woman, feeling a strange connection forming. It was as if the universe had placed her in his hands for a reason. And though he didn't understand why, he knew one thing clearly. His life had just changed forever. As the first pale light of dawn crept across the plains, Eli made a silent promise. He would uncover her secrets. He would defend her. And he would face whatever was coming with the same determination he had used to tame Dryfall Ranch. Humanity might be small in the vastness of the universe, but it was clever, resilient, and brave. And Eli intended to prove that once again. Outside, the plains stretched endlessly, quiet and watchful. But inside the small cabin, a new chapter had begun. A story of courage, mystery, and the extraordinary potential of the human spirit. And for Eli Turner, the quiet frontier of Dryfall Ranch had become the first line of defense for something far greater than he had ever imagined. The morning sun spilled weakly through the small windows of Eli Turner's cabin, painting the walls with streaks of pale gold. The twin moons had disappeared behind the horizon, leaving only the distant hills and alien grasses under the brightening sky. Eli sat at the edge of the couch, watching the woman, Mara, stir in her sleep. Her breathing was shallow but steady, and for the first time she looked less like a frightened wanderer and more like someone carrying a dangerous secret. Eli had spent the night in thought. Who was she? Why had she come to his isolated ranch? And what had she meant when she whispered, "Just end it quickly"? He couldn't make sense of it. Yet one thing was clear, he couldn't leave her outside. Not when the plains themselves could kill, and not when some unknown danger had driven her here. "Hey," he whispered softly, leaning closer. "Can you hear me?" Mara's eyes flickered open. They were strange, mesmerizing, green and gold like sunlight on wet metal. Eli shivered, unsure if he should feel awe or fear. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and terror. "They're coming," she murmured. Her voice was weak, almost a whisper, but it carried a weight that made Eli's heart tighten. "Who's coming?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she shifted slightly under the blanket, revealing something that made Eli recoil, though he quickly forced himself to stay calm. Her arms had faintly glowing lines like circuits etched beneath her skin. They pulsed softly, in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her body, Eli realized, was not fully human. Something about her was different, alien, and yet familiar. Eli swallowed hard. He had faced dangerous creatures on Dryfall Ranch before, and even survived a near-fatal storm on the northern plateau. But this was something entirely new. And yet, he didn't feel fear. He felt a sense of duty, a determination to protect her, even if he didn't understand why. He moved slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I just want to help. Can you tell me your name?" "Mara," she whispered. Then, as if fighting an invisible force, she added, "I can't stay long, they will find me." Eli frowned. "Who will find you?" Mara's eyes darted toward the window. Her gaze was filled with urgency and fear. "Predators," she said finally. "Not ordinary predators. They hunt for knowledge, for life. I carry something inside me, something they want." Eli's mind raced. He had heard rumors of alien hunters, creatures so intelligent they could track a target across worlds, but he had never imagined meeting one, or that someone would be running from them directly to his doorstep. "Something inside you," he repeated. Mara nodded weakly. "A seed or a virus or life. I don't know how to explain it, it's part of me. But if they reach me, they will take it, destroy it, or use it. I can't let that happen." Eli felt a chill, but he pushed it aside. He had lived on Dryfall Ranch long enough to know that danger didn't wait for anyone. "You faced it, you acted. Then we'll stop them," he said firmly. "Whatever it is, I won't let them take it. You'll stay here safe." Mara's lips quivered. "Safe maybe, but you don't understand. They are patient, relentless. They can smell fear, track energy. They are not like anything humans have faced." Eli nodded. "I might not understand yet, but I know humans survive because we're clever. We adapt. We fight when we must. And I've survived a lot of things out here. Storms, wild animals, alien winters. We can figure this out together." Mara's eyes softened slightly. She seemed to find some comfort in his words, though fear still lingered. Eli spent the next hour preparing. He checked his tools, weapons, and even old traps he had set up for stray predators. He didn't know what he would face, but he knew one thing: he would not be caught unprepared. Then came the moment he had been dreading. Mara's breathing became erratic. Eli moved closer, concerned. "What's happening?" he asked. It's inside me," she said. Her voice was strained. "It's waking, I can feel it trying to take over." Eli's eyes widened. "Take over?" "Yes," she whispered, her hands trembling. "I'm not fully in control. If it breaks free, it could." She stopped, unable to finish the thought. Eli realized she was warning him of something terrifying, something beyond comprehension. Eli forced himself to stay calm. Panic would not help her. "We'll stop it," he said firmly. "I don't know how yet, but we will. First, let's try to understand it." He fetched a scanner from his workbench. It was crude but functional, a tool meant for analyzing soil, plants, or animal biology. He aimed it at her arm and activated it. The screen flickered, then displayed patterns of energy and matter unlike anything Eli had seen. His stomach twisted with awe. This is incredible," he muttered. "Your body, it's a mix, human and something else, something advanced." Mara nodded weakly. "I know. I've tried to hide it, live quietly, but they always find me." Eli leaned back, thinking. He had survived harsh planets and deadly storms, yes, but now he was facing something far more complicated. A life form that was both human and alien, hunted by predators beyond his comprehension. Yet he felt a strange confidence. Humans thrived in impossible situations. They adapted, they fought, and he would do the same. "I need to know what triggers it," Eli said slowly. "Can you describe what happens when it wakes?" Mara closed her eyes, trembling. It spreads like fire, consuming the human part of me. I fight it, but it is strong, ancient. I fear it will escape if they find me. Eli nodded. He had an idea. He could use the ranch, the land, and his traps to control the situation. If he could delay the predators, he might buy enough time to help Mara stabilize herself. He rose, stretching his arms. "We'll need a plan," he said. "We'll need defenses, and I'll need to learn as much about you and whatever is inside you as I can." Mara opened her eyes slowly. She studied him for a long moment as if deciding whether to trust him. Then she nodded. I will tell you what I can. But you must promise. No one else, not until it is safe." "I promise," Eli said firmly. For the rest of the morning, Mara shared fragmented information about her life and the entity within her. She had been part of a scientific expedition on a distant world, studying alien biomes. Something had gone wrong, and she had become the carrier of a hybrid life form, part human, part alien. The entity had intelligence, awareness, and an almost predatory instinct to survive. Eli listened carefully, asking questions, taking notes in his mind. He was careful not to touch the lines on her skin directly, only observing from a safe distance. But he also realized something remarkable. Despite the danger, Mara's hybrid biology might offer humanity a new understanding of survival, resilience, and adaptability in the universe. "I can help you," Eli said finally. "But first, we need to understand the rules. How does it behave? When does it react? How do we keep it calm?" Mara nodded. "It responds to emotions, stress, fear. It feeds on energy, emotional and physical. That's why they track me, they can sense it. They want control over it." Eli's mind worked quickly. He remembered old techniques he used on his ranch. Controlling animal behavior, setting traps, using decoys. Maybe some of those principles could work here. Maybe human ingenuity, observation, and patience could protect Mara long enough for them to find a solution. The day passed slowly. Eli prepared his cabin, setting up rudimentary monitoring devices using old sensors, mirrors, and even reflective surfaces to track energy fluctuations. Mara rested, exhausted, occasionally twitching as the entity within her stirred. By evening, Eli had crafted a simple routine to calm her: soft light, steady voice, and gentle touch where allowed. He spoke to her about the ranch, the plains, and the creatures he had tamed. Slowly, Mara's breathing stabilized, and she looked at him with a hint of hope for the first time. Outside, the wind whispered through the alien grasses. Eli knew the predators were still out there. But inside the cabin, a fragile bubble of safety had formed. He had no idea how long it would last, but he knew one thing clearly: humans survive because they refuse to give up. And he would not give up on Mara. As the twin moons began to rise again, casting silver light across the plains, Eli sat beside the sleeping woman. He placed a hand gently over hers, feeling the faint pulse of the alien energy beneath her skin. He had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but he felt certain of this. With courage, cleverness, and determination, humanity could face the unknown and protect the life that had come into his care. Outside, the plains remained vast and silent, but the first battle had been won, not against an enemy, but against fear itself. And Eli Turner was ready for whatever came next. The sun had barely risen over the jagged peaks of Dryfall Ranch when Eli Turner was already awake. His mind buzzed with plans, calculations, and possibilities. The night had been quiet, but he knew that silence was never a promise of safety. Mara lay asleep on the couch, the blanket pulled snugly around her, but the faint pulsing lines under her skin reminded him that the danger had not vanished. Eli walked over to the small workbench in the corner of the cabin. Tools, sensors, and scraps of machinery were spread across its surface. He picked up a compact scanner and tested its functions. It was crude, designed for soil and livestock, but with a few adjustments, It could detect energy fluctuations in Mara's hybrid biology. He tapped his fingers against the table, thinking. "They're coming," Mara had said. "Predators. They hunt intelligence and life. They can sense the seed inside me." Eli frowned. He didn't know exactly what the seed was, but he knew he couldn't wait for an explanation. He had survived storms that could level entire valleys, wild beasts that could tear a grown man apart, and the harshest seasons the planet could throw at him. If anyone could figure out how to protect Mara, it was him. Humans survived because they adapted. He glanced at the plains outside. The wind moved the alien grasses in rolling waves, and shadows stretched long under the twin moons. The predator could be anywhere. Eli had no illusions. It was intelligent, fast, and patient. But humans were clever. Humans could turn the land itself into a weapon. He started by reinforcing the cabin. Old planks from previous construction, wire fences, and his own knowledge of animal behavior became tools of defense. He positioned mirrors along the edges of the property to reflect light and confuse sensors. He rigged the windows with simple alarms. When a beam of light was broken, a bell would ring. It was crude but effective. Mara stirred and opened her eyes, blinking at the light. "You're working," she said weakly. "I have to," Eli replied. "They will come, Mara, and I'm not going to let them take you." Her lips twitched into a faint smile, but fear remained in her eyes. "You don't understand," she said. "They are not like humans. They think in ways you cannot imagine. They can anticipate, predict." Eli nodded. "Maybe, but humans survive by thinking, by observing, and by using every resource they have. That's what we do out here. That's how I survive every day on this ranch. We'll apply the same principles." She studied him silently for a long moment, then nodded. "I will help you," she said, "but you must listen carefully. One wrong move—" Her voice trailed off. "I understand," Eli said firmly. "Now tell me everything you can." Over the next few hours, Mara explained more about the entity inside her. It was intelligent, aware, and reactive. It could sense danger, but it also responded to emotions. Fear and stress made it stronger, while calm and focus could suppress it. The predators she feared most could track these signals across vast distances. If she panicked, it would draw them to her. Eli's mind raced. He had an idea. "We'll create a controlled environment," he said. "We'll monitor your energy, your stress levels, and we'll adjust the surroundings. Light, sound, even temperature, everything can help you stay calm." Mara nodded. "It might work, but only for a while. They are persistent. They won't stop." Eli went to work. He arranged the cabin into zones of calm and alert. Mirrors reflected sunlight into the corners. Soft light lamps created a gentle glow, and reflective sheets covered the windows, giving the illusion of movement outside. He positioned small, mechanical sensors he had built to detect changes in the air and ground vibrations. Each time the sensors detected unusual movement, a soft alarm would alert him. It was exhausting work. By midday, Eli was covered in sweat and grime, but he felt satisfaction. The ranch had always been about survival, understanding the land, the animals, and the weather. Now the same principles applied to protecting Mara: observation, preparation, adaptation. Mara watched silently, fascinated. "You're clever," she said. "I've never met a human like you. You see patterns, possibilities." Eli shrugged. "Survival teaches you that. The land doesn't wait for you to understand it. You adapt or you die. I've survived for years by paying attention, by thinking ahead, and I'll do the same now." The afternoon passed slowly. Mara rested while Eli continued to fortify the cabin. He crafted a series of simple traps outside the perimeter using rope, pulleys, and metal scraps. They weren't meant to kill. They were meant to warn, to slow, to confuse. Every device was carefully tested and adjusted. Finally, as evening approached, Mara felt restless. The entity inside her stirred. She sat up, trembling. "It's awake," she whispered. Eli moved closer. "Stay calm. Remember what we practiced. Focus on your breathing." She nodded, closing her eyes. Eli could see the faint glow under her skin intensifying, like embers in a fire. He adjusted the lights in the cabin to create a calm environment, spoke softly to her, and kept his hand near hers, offering steady reassurance. Slowly the glow dimmed slightly, showing that human ingenuity and patience could influence the alien entity. Suddenly, a low, guttural sound echoed from outside. Eli froze. Mara's eyes snapped open. "They are here," she said, her voice tight with fear. Eli moved to the window cautiously. Through the darkness, he could see movement, shapes larger than any human, sliding silently across the plains. They were intelligent predators, just as Mara had warned. They moved with purpose, as if reading the land and anticipating his actions. Eli's mind worked quickly. He adjusted his mirrors to reflect moonlight, creating illusions of movement. He activated small alarms to mask the real location of the cabin. He grabbed his rifle, knowing that brute force alone would not be enough. They were clever, adaptive, and possibly faster than he was. Mara's hand touched his arm. "Careful," she whispered. "They can sense fear. They know if you hesitate." "I won't," Eli said firmly. "We survive by acting, by thinking, by staying calm. That's what makes us human. That's our advantage." Hours passed like this. The predators prowled the perimeter, testing, probing, trying to detect the energy within Mara. Eli remained calm, methodical. He adjusted lights, moved reflective surfaces, triggered alarms, and quietly observed their reactions. Every action was measured. Every move counted. Mara's breathing stabilized and the glow beneath her skin dimmed. Eli realized something remarkable. Humans could influence this entity, not with raw power, but with patience, intellect, and understanding. It was the same principle that had kept him alive in the harshest storms, the same principle that had allowed humans to settle the stars: cleverness, adaptation, and courage. Finally, just before dawn, the predators retreated into the distance. Eli collapsed into a chair, exhausted but exhilarated. He had done it. Using only his wits, his knowledge of the land, and the principles of survival, he had held off creatures far beyond human experience. Mara looked at him with awe. You saved us," she said softly. Eli smiled tiredly. "We saved each other. Humans survive because we never give up. We think, we plan, we adapt. That's how we face the impossible, and that's how we survive." Mara reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. The faint glow under her skin dimmed completely for the first time in hours. Maybe there is hope," she whispered. Eli nodded. "There is always hope as long as we use our minds, our courage, and our hearts. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us strong." The twin moons rose again, casting a silver glow over the plains. The predators had gone, but the threat was far from over. Eli knew they would return, and he would be ready. For now, however, he allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The cabin was fortified, Mara was stable, and human ingenuity had once again turned the tide against impossible odds. Out here on the frontier, where the universe seemed vast and indifferent, it was humans, clever, brave, and determined, who held the edge. And Eli Turner, rancher, survivor, protector, knew that no matter what came next, humanity would endure. The night was unnaturally still at Dryfall Ranch. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Eli Turner stood at the edge of his property, the rifle in his hands feeling heavier than usual. Mara sat quietly on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes flickering with the faint glow that had been dormant for hours. "They're close," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the distant hum of the night. Eli didn't respond immediately. He scanned the horizon, eyes sharp, mind calculating. The predators were intelligent, patient, and relentless. He knew they were observing, analyzing, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Out here on this desolate frontier, there was nowhere to hide. Only wit, courage, and preparedness could offer a chance at survival. "I can see them," he said finally, voice steady. "Stay calm. Follow my lead." Mara nodded, gripping the blanket tightly. Eli moved along the perimeter, adjusting the mirrors and reflective surfaces he had set up earlier. Each one was positioned to create confusion, sending false reflections and shifting lights across the plains. He checked the small alarms, bells, thin wires, and vibration sensors he had rigged to detect movement. Everything was ready. The first shadow appeared at the edge of the plains. Large, lithe, and alien in shape, it moved with eerie precision. Eli crouched behind a boulder, watching it carefully. The creature paused, sensing the energy within Mara. Its head tilted slightly, scanning the ranch, testing the traps. "They can sense her," Mara said softly. "They know she is here." "I know," Eli replied calmly. "And they will try to get her, but we're ready." The shadow approached the first trap, a simple snare made from rope and pulleys. It froze, sniffing the air, then cautiously pressed against the wire. The bell rang, loud and clear, startling the predator. It leapt back, scanning the area, but the mirrors created multiple false images of Mara across the plains. The creature hesitated, unsure where to focus. Eli watched carefully, noting its reactions. "They think they understand," he muttered. "But they can't predict human ingenuity." Mara's hand brushed his arm. "Be careful," she whispered. "They are clever, smarter than any predator I've faced." "I know," Eli said, "but humans are clever too. We survive because we think, because we adapt." The first predator tested another route, moving along the edge of the property. Eli triggered one of his vibration sensors, causing a small flare to shoot upward. The light reflected in the mirrors, creating the illusion of movement in multiple directions. The predator hissed, frustrated, retreating slightly. Mara's eyes glowed faintly as she concentrated. The entity inside her responded to her emotions, calming slightly as she focused. Eli realized something important. The key wasn't just his traps or weapons, it was their combined effort. Human strategy and hybrid intelligence could work together to hold the line. Hours passed in tense silence. The predators were patient, testing, probing, learning. Eli stayed calm, observing their patterns, adjusting his defenses, and silently teaching Mara how to manage the entity within her. "They will try a full assault soon," she warned. "We need to be ready." Eli nodded. "We are ready. We just need to stay focused, use what we have, and act together." As the twin moons rose high, casting silver light across the plains, the predators made their move. 3 large creatures advanced in coordinated formation, their senses sharp, their strategy evident. Eli's heart pounded, but he remained calm. He activated the alarms and adjusted the mirrors to create multiple false targets. The predators were confused, hissing and circling, trying to determine the real location of Mara. Mara's glow intensified as the entity inside her sensed danger. She closed her eyes, focusing on controlling it. Her breathing became steady, guided by Eli's calm instructions. Slowly, the glow dimmed, and the predators hesitated, sensing the reduced energy signature. Eli took advantage of the moment. He lured one predator toward a trap, a pit camouflaged with loose dirt and reflective panels. The creature stepped carefully, testing the ground, but the mirrors created the illusion of movement ahead. It miscalculated and fell into the pit with a heavy thud. Mara gasped. "You did it," Eli nodded. "1 down, 2 to go, stay calm. Focus on the glow, control it, that's our advantage." The second predator advanced cautiously, more aware of the traps now. Eli used decoys, metal scraps and light reflectors to draw it toward another snare. The creature snarled, frustrated, but it fell for the trick, entangling its limbs and immobilizing itself. Mara's confidence grew. We can do this," she whispered. The glow from her body pulsed gently, controlled and steady, feeding into the plan rather than giving the predators an advantage. The final predator was smarter, larger, and more cautious. It approached directly, sensing Mara's energy. Eli's heart raced, but he kept calm. He guided Mara to a position near the cabin. where reflective surfaces and traps created a controlled environment. The predator advanced, and Eli used a combination of lights, noises, and vibration sensors to manipulate its movements. Finally, with a coordinated effort, the predator misjudged the distance and fell into a deep trap Eli had prepared, a pit reinforced with logs and rocks. It struggled but could not escape. Eli breathed a sigh of relief. The threat was neutralized for now. Mara collapsed onto the porch, exhausted but alive. You saved me," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We saved each other," Eli replied. "Humans survive because we adapt, because we think, and because we don't give up. That's what makes us strong." The cabin was quiet again, the only sound the distant wind moving across the plains. Eli checked the traps and sensors, making minor adjustments to ensure they were still functional. Mara rested, finally able to control the entity within her completely. You are remarkable," she said softly. "I've never met a human like you, clever, patient, brave." Eli smiled tiredly. "Humans survive because we must. Out here at the edge of the universe, survival isn't about strength, it's about brains, courage, and heart." "That's why we endure," Mara nodded, "and that is why I trust you." The twin moons cast their silver light across the plains. Eli stood at the edge of his property, looking out into the darkness. He knew the predators would return. They were intelligent, patient, and persistent. But he also knew something else. Humanity had a strength that no predator, no alien, and no danger could match. It wasn't just physical strength. It was ingenuity, determination, adaptability. It was the ability to survive impossible odds, to think faster, plan smarter, and act decisively. Eli had seen it in every storm he had faced, every wild animal he had tamed, every harsh season he had endured. And now he saw it in himself and in Mara. For the rest of the night, Eli and Mara prepared. They reinforced traps, monitored energy signals, and planned contingencies for every possible move the predators might make. They spoke quietly about strategy, survival, and the future. In the quiet moments, Eli realized something extraordinary. Humans were capable of incredible things when they combined courage, intelligence, and empathy. By dawn, the predators had vanished, retreating to the distant hills. The plains returned to their usual silence, but Eli knew this was only temporary. He and Mara had survived tonight, but the universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of dangers. And yet he felt hope. Humans survived not because the universe was kind, but because they refused to surrender to it. Mara finally relaxed, lying back on the porch. The faint glow of her hybrid biology dimmed completely. Maybe there is hope," she whispered. Eli nodded. "There is always hope as long as we use our minds, our courage, and our hearts. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us strong." The twin moons cast a gentle glow over the ranch. Eli Turner, rancher and protector, knew that the battle was not over. But he also knew that humans could face the unknown and survive. And with cleverness, patience, and determination, he would protect Mara and the extraordinary life within her, no matter what the universe threw at them next. The first light of dawn stretched across the alien plains, painting Dryfall Ranch in soft shades of gold and silver. Eli Turner stood on the porch, surveying the property. The night had been tense, the predators had retreated, but he knew the universe was unpredictable. Danger could return at any moment. Yet he felt a quiet confidence. Humans survived not because the universe was kind, but because they were clever, brave, and resilient. Mara sat beside him, wrapped in the blanket, her glowing skin now calm and steady. For the first time, she seemed at peace. The entity inside her had stabilized under Eli's guidance. Together, they had managed to control it through patience, strategy, and human ingenuity. "I can feel it," Mara said softly. It listens now. It responds to me, but also to you, to us working together." Eli nodded. "We survive by thinking, observing, and adapting. We can face anything when we work together." Her eyes shimmered with gratitude. "I never believed humans could handle this, but you changed that," he smiled. "We survive because we refuse to give up. Because we don't just act, we plan. We learn, we adapt. That's what makes humans strong." The morning was calm, almost peaceful, but Eli didn't let his guard down. He spent the day reinforcing the ranch, improving traps, and analyzing Mara's energy patterns. Using the crude sensors he had modified, he observed the entity inside her, noting fluctuations in her glow and pulse. Each adjustment, each movement, was part of a delicate dance. "You're incredible," Mara said quietly, watching him work. "You see solutions where I see only danger." Eli shrugged. "It's what humans do. We survive on the frontier by using our minds. We turn the impossible into something manageable. And right now, the impossible is keeping you safe." By evening, the ranch was fortified like never before. Sensors, reflective surfaces, alarms, and traps created a complex network of defenses. Mara had learned to control her hybrid biology, focusing her energy to remain calm and less detectable. Together, they had transformed the cabin and surrounding land into a fortress. But Eli knew that the predators were still out there, watching. Intelligent, patient, and relentless, they would return. The final confrontation was inevitable. As night fell, the wind carried distant sounds, subtle vibrations that spoke of movement across the plains. Eli motioned for Mara to stay inside. He checked his rifle, weapons, and traps one last time. Every detail mattered. Every calculation could mean the difference between life and death. The predators struck just after midnight. 3 massive creatures moved silently, deliberately, each step measured. They had learned from their previous encounters. Eli and Mara's combined efforts had delayed them, but now the predators adapted. "Stay calm," Eli whispered to Mara. "Focus on controlling the glow. Don't let fear take over. We can handle this." Mara closed her eyes, her hands steadying, her breath measured. The faint glow under her skin pulsed gently, controlled, like a heartbeat in rhythm with the night. The predators sensed the energy but could not pinpoint it. Eli's traps and decoys created illusions, sending them in circles. The first predator lunged toward a false target. Eli triggered a trap, sending a cascade of dirt and debris toward it. The creature stumbled, then recovered, but the delay gave Eli and Mara an advantage. "We can do this," he said quietly. "Keep it steady. Watch the glow." The second predator tried to flank them, moving along the perimeter with calculated precision. Eli anticipated its path, adjusting mirrors and alarms to create a distraction. A sudden flash of light, a metallic clatter, and the predator froze, confused. Mara's entity pulsed in response, feeding on her calmness rather than panic. The predator retreated slightly, unable to locate the real source of energy. Finally, the third predator approached directly, larger and more intelligent than the others. It hissed, analyzing the landscape, trying to anticipate human action. Eli's heart pounded, but he remained calm. He guided Mara to the center of the cabin, where reflective surfaces, light, and traps created a controlled environment. "Now," Eli whispered, "trust your focus." "Trust us." Mara's eyes closed. The glow from her body intensified slightly, not in fear but in controlled energy. The predators reacted instinctively, sensing movement and energy. They lunged, miscalculating due to Eli's careful positioning of mirrors and alarms. The creature fell into a deep pit trap reinforced with logs and rocks. Its struggle was powerful, but it could not escape. Eli exhaled slowly, lowering his rifle. Mara opened her eyes, glowing softly, calm and steady. We did it," she whispered, awe in her voice. "Yes," Eli said, smiling tiredly. "Humans survive because we think, adapt, and refuse to give up. That's what makes us strong. And that's what saved you tonight." The creatures were gone, retreating into the distant plains. The ranch returned to its quiet state, the wind moving through alien grasses, the twin moons casting silver light over the land. Eli and Mara sat together, exhausted but triumphant. "You saved me," Mara said softly. "Not just from them, but from fear, from losing control." "We saved each other," Eli replied. "Humans survive because we face the unknown. We use our minds, our hearts, and our courage. That's what makes us strong. And now you are strong too. Together we can face anything." Mara smiled faintly, the glow of her hybrid biology steady and controlled. "I never believed humans could protect life like this, but now I see. Your courage, your ingenuity, it's extraordinary." Eli chuckled softly. "It's what humans do." Out here on the frontier, survival isn't about strength alone. It's about brains, heart, and patience. We adapt, we plan, we endure. Over the next few days, Eli and Mara worked to stabilize her fully. Using the knowledge she shared, Eli crafted devices that could monitor energy fluctuations, helping Mara control the entity inside her. Each improvement strengthened her control and increased their chances of survival. Mara began to experiment, using her hybrid abilities to enhance their defenses. Small flashes of controlled energy lit the ranch at night, adding another layer of security. The predators never returned, deterred by the combined human-alien ingenuity. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Mara turned to Eli. "I've learned so much from you," she said. "Not just about survival, but about humans. You are clever, brave, and kind. I never imagined a human could be so extraordinary." Eli smiled. "Humans survive because we refuse to surrender. We face the impossible with courage and thought, and we never give up on life, especially when it's worth protecting." Mara reached out, touching his hand. The faint glow of her skin pulsed gently. "Then I will stay," she said. "Not just as a survivor, but as a bridge between our worlds, between life and what comes next." Eli nodded. "Then together we'll face the future. Whatever comes, humans survive, and we will protect what matters most." The plain stretched endlessly before them, quiet and still under the twin moons. The ranch, once a simple outpost on the frontier, had become a symbol of human resilience and ingenuity. A place where courage, thought, and determination had turned fear into triumph. Mara looked at Eli, her eyes glowing softly. "I feel hope, for the first time in a long time." Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "Hope is the human gift. It's what lets us endure storms, survive predators, and face the unknown. And it's what lets us build a future worth living for." Together, they stood on the porch, looking out across the plains. The predators were gone, the night was calm, and the entity within Mara was finally under control. They had faced impossible odds and survived, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, patience, courage, and the human spirit. And Eli Turner, rancher, protector, and witness to the extraordinary, knew one simple truth: humanity endured because it never surrendered. Whatever the universe held next, they would face it, together. The twin moons glimmered overhead, a silent testament to survival, ingenuity, and hope. And for the first time in a long time, the frontier felt alive, not with fear but with possibility.